Hello everybody, this is Yeshua Durkin from Chabad of YouTube. I just wanted to do a quick recap of the last Parsha. There was a small thing there from the Gutnik Chumash, and I think it would be important for people to think about the lesson before we move on to the next Parsha of Chukas. So I'm just going to turn the camera around so you can see where it comes from. It's the very beginning, Sparks of Chassidus, through the Gutnik Chumash, Rabbi Chaim Miller's Gutnik Chumash. Let's see. At my friend Aaron Novi's house, using his Chumash. And this is what it says. According to Chassidic thought, Korach's rebellion occurred at this point in time, since it was prompted by the sin of the spies. You know, last week's parsha of the Shalach and the spies, they were supposed to spy out the land, only they had a negative report with Lashon Hara. The inner reason why the spies did not want to enter the land of Israel was because they preferred the exclusively spiritual life of the desert to a life of serving God amid physical concerns, such as the need to earn a living. The downfall of the spies thus sent a powerful message that Judaism prioritizes physical action over spiritual and intellectual pursuits. Upon hearing this, Korach protested to Moshe, "Why have you made yourself elite over God's assembly? I can appreciate," argued Korach, "that you are a more spiritual and holy person than us. But since we now see that Judaism makes physical action the priority, how are you better than anybody else? Aren't your actions the same as ours?" Korach's mistake was that the Torah does not demand lifeless action, but rather deeds that shine with inspiration and spiritual enlightenment. Thus, the two mistakes of the spies and Korach teach us that a healthy equilibrium is required. One must not shy away from physical life, like the spies. But on the other hand, Judaism's emphasis on action must never lead to a life of meaningless spiritual bankruptcy. Every mitzvah should be carried out with the highest levels of spiritual consciousness. Our struggle to harmonize physical action with spiritual contemplation is fought on three fronts: the need to ensure that our intentions do not remain in the realm of wishful thinking, and that concrete action takes place. That's one. And B, that our actions should always be dictated by the Torah's value system. C, that actions should never be overglorified, and that we should always aspire to be more spiritual. Our sages taught that the world was made with the letter He. It's from Menachos 29b. This is because its shape represents the equilibrium between the more spiritual dimensions of thought, speech, versus physical deed. I'm going to flip this over again and check out this letter He right here. See right here, He? The top line. Let me see. The top line right here represents thought. The bottom line of the He represents speech. And then the line with a gap is deed. But remember, there's actually a gap. It's not closed off. This is because its shape represents the equilibrium between the more spiritual dimensions of thought, speech, versus physical deed. Korach's name is spelled by letters that are all distortions of the left side of the letter He, indicating how he wished to upset the equilibrium in the area of deed. In the Ches, the gap between deed and thought and speech is closed, suggesting that the physical no longer looks up to or aspires to the spiritual. See if you look right here, the deed for ches would be closed off. Right now, the line for deed is looking up to thought with a gap. So that's a problem with ches. The gap between the deed, thought, and speech is closed, suggesting that the physical no longer looks up to or aspires to the spiritual. This is why Korach rebelled against the spiritual leadership of Moshe and Aaron. In the Kuf, deed has extended. See, that's a ches. In the Kuf, deed has extended below and is no longer dictated by thought and speech. Thought and speech of Torah. And in the Reish, deed is missing altogether. In short, it is relatively easy to be entirely spiritual and aloof, or entirely physical and mundane. Our challenge is to harmonize both these qualities in our daily life, thus making a home for God below. So on one hand, you have to not be like the spies where you're up in the physical realm and you don't actually do anything. But on the other hand, you can't just do physical things without being inspired from the Torah to do the mitzvah. One has to learn the Torah, learn the Chassidus, learn how to properly do everything properly, to follow the Torah. And once he has all the spiritual guidance and hashpah, influence of the Torah, then he needs to apply it into deed. You have to have an equilibrium between the two. And that's how you can have a perfection in everything. I wish everybody a successful week. Good Tavach.